open the select board meeting. It's 6:01. And do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve. Second.
We're not adding anything.
No,
to it.
I
All
don't have
right,
any
all in
items.
favor?
Aye.
We don't have any appointments tonight. Do we have any public comment? All right, I have.
Maybe Danny.
Oh, Danny, do you have any public comment?
All right. Well, you tried.
No,
Here you come.
no, I'm just here. I'm just here to listen. It's good.
All right, thank you, Danny. All right, I have a comment for the public. We received a letter of resignation from Paul Valley today for a couple of personal reasons. We're looking into the process of filling his position, and we'll be going through the Secretary of State's office. And it is with regret for me personally that he is stepping down. He's been a big part of this town for between the select board and his human services and other stuff he's done for the town of Bethel for probably well over 10 years. So it is with my regret that he is stepping down, but understandable for his personal reasons. I don't know if anybody wants to add anything to that or not.
Just for the record, it's effective
It's,
today.
his letter came today. It's effective today. No other public,
Discuss the process to replace it.
Well,
we're looking into that.
yeah, I have reached out to, I asked Pam to reach out to the Secretary of State's office because normally the process is we'll post the vacancy. We need to post it within 10 days, which I'll do tomorrow. And then because you switched to Australian ballot, I believe that the select board will run an ad and will interview and will appoint someone until the following March 2026. But I want to make sure that that's still correct with the current election laws. So if that's the case, we'll post an opening ad. We'll get together some questions to ask any applicants, and then the majority of the select board will appoint someone that will serve until March 2026. That's how you got on. Yep. I just want to make sure that the law is still accurate.
Yeah.
Or that, not the laws, my interpretation is accurate. The law is right. I just want to make sure I have it right. But so that'll be the process. And once I get that clarification, we'll get the ad out but it would be great if you guys wanted to start thinking of questions. I don't know how you did it in the past when you got Dave. Just drew the short straw or what, Dave? I don't know.
I know there was 4 of us, and I don't know if they asked much for questions. They asked us each to, you were here, Chris. I think you asked us to, why did we want to be on the select board?
Yeah, we just put it out for notice of anybody that was interested. Those candidates then came to the select board meeting.
Yeah.
And presented why they wanted to be on the board. Then we went into executive session downstairs
Yeah.
to talk through them and came out with a decision.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I couldn't remember the.
Had to do it 3 times now, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
But, yeah, it's usually how it goes.
So we'll be waiting for your letter, Mike. So,
Or Brian's.
yeah, or Brian's, yeah. So, or whoever else, but yeah, okay, so we'll go through that process anyway, so.
Doesn't have to be a man, be one.
Could be
That's
any,
right.
yeah, absolutely,
Could be anybody.
There's been several on our board over the years.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
It's not
So-
gonna lift 100 pounds of anything.
yeah,
Nope, just gotta be able to carry a lot of weight.
that's right.
And thick skin.
Yeah.
All right, discussion on the 25-26 budget
All
for
right.
town meeting.
So I gave you, I'd forgotten to put in your packet, so I gave you today the proposed FY 2025 budget summary and the budget comparison. So Chris, I don't know, do you want to practice your town meeting explanation? That's good practice for.
So let's see, we'll just start with the revenues, if anybody, well. Danny, there's only 2 people here, but
Danny,
if anybody has any questions, like, more definitive question on a certain item in a department, just let me know. We can go through that. Normally what I do is just kind of go through a high level view of things that went up, things that went down, how that impacts you or not by the departments, and kind of leave out a lot of the small stuff, just try to hit the big stuff. So the local revenues, which is usually, less than $500,000 worth of local revenues that we collect. And those are normally things like things that the town clerk would collect for fees, also for state class aid that we get. So those types of things is the most local revenue, and usually doesn't change much, goes up a little bit, comes down a little bit. This year it's up about $10,000 in revenue wise. No big mover on that. And then the cost end of things is where we spend most of our time.
No, she doesn't.
So just kind of overall, the cost of the budget is up $78,000 over last year. So if you look at, if you put the revenue in with the cost, it's a net increase of $68,000, which is about just over 3 cents. So for anybody that doesn't know how to calculate what that means to you, I know in the reports, we normally will state like based on a certain valued home, it would be this dollar. But if you want to do it exactly at your home, is take your tax bill that you have and find your taxed home value assessment. So, if you have a $250,000 house, take the 250,000, divide that by 100, and then multiply it by, in this case, so it's 3.2 cents, which would be 0.032. And that would be your thing. So like a $300,000 house in Bethel, which is getting close to kind of the median household value now. We used to use like 230, but
Yeah.
obviously
I think
with
it's-
everything that's kind of ballooned up, that's about $96 a year that your taxes would increase if approved everything. So just kind of breaking through that, most of the time, the biggest movers are in Public Works, because Public Works happens to be more than half of the overall budget. So, plowing roads, sanding roads, graveling roads, those, and having the personnel for that. And so this year, Public Works budget itself is increased by $60,000 over the previous year. And the biggest movers on that is benefits have increased over $30,000 every year forever. That's the biggest mover in our budget every year, is like 1 or 2 pennies a year is just in benefits. We all know that our healthcare goes up every year, and so does the municipal healthcare. Some decreases in the budget in Public Works is the materials. So we've been able to either buy some sand ahead of time that we have left over that we don't need. Some salt prices have stabilized. We took a little bit out of gravel and some of those pieces. So we were able to help try to balance some of the budget by reducing some of the material, $45,000. And then we have overall 1 full-time position to get our crew to 4 individuals, which will that ever happen? I don't know, but we always try. We don't think we ever get there, but just as we get the 4th one, we lose somebody. And, but the idea is to have 4 individuals to be able to do that. Cause we all know that, whenever somebody calls out sick or takes some of their PTO time, that it's hard to do anything with 2 people. You really can't get much done with 2 people. And it seems like often, especially through the summer months, it's always like, oh, there's only 2 people working because somebody's got this week off. And somebody's got that week off. So that's kind of been the focus, was to get it back up to 4 full-time individuals. The next large mover in the budget was law enforcement. And we had, a pretty lengthy several discussions in regards to, our shift away from constable to the sheriff's department. We started off this year with a value of $80,000 area, and now have, through several talks with the community and the board, have decided to increase patrol hours or up. So the increase there is about $60,000 in more budget for law enforcement to take care of some of those needs of speed enforcement, cutting down on activities in the community that aren't very nice, like, drugs and things like that, that we hope to help with more presence. We'll be able to solve some. The rec department's budget is down 17,000. 10,000 of that 17,000 is just, normally every year we put allotted amount of capital reserve funds in there for them to do future projects. So for years, we put $10,000 a year or $20,000 a year in there, so we could do, trail enhancement or do skateboard park or those things. And right now, we don't really have a plan of what the next event is at the rec facility. So we just chose this year, means we needed to find some money to try to cut, was to not put any future funds in there until we found it. I think the balance still is like 40 or 50.
Yeah, they still have some money, yeah.
So there's still quite the fund balance there. And then just some of the things that were in the budget, the previous one that aren't, we had some repairs that were in there before that aren't in there. So those are kind of the biggest movers. And this is all hinged upon hoping to open that facility still. So,
Yeah.
Wherever we're at, if we don't get a pool director, we'll be opening it and there'll be quite a bit of savings there.
Yeah.
And
We're
then,
actually doing an interview tomorrow.
oh, that's good.
Or I mean, no,
Wednesday.
Wednesday. We're actually interviewing Wednesday.
Wednesday.
The applicant. Few weeks ago.
Yes, yeah, we had a second person interested, and we will see if Deidre was reaching back out to her with some additional information that she wanted, so I don't know about that, but currently we have at least one interview going Wednesday afternoon. Oh,
That's good.
Sorry.
Well, it'd be nice to see it open. So.
Yeah, no, I wanted to let you know.
And then under the parks and public places, and you'll see that there's 70,000 less dollars in there this year versus last year. And really that was how we had categorized some of our costs, as we put one of the people doing mowing lawns and things like that was kind of under parks and public places. We kind of took that back away from there and just kind of put it on the public works end of things. So at the end of the day, if you see like public works went up 60, but parks and public places went down 70, it's really kind of like balancing those people out. Just it's a different pot that we're putting the money in, we're taking it from. The municipal office end of things is up 18,000. 10,000 of the 18,000 really is salary increases and slight benefit changes and things like that. So there's not total big movers. And then the last other large mover in the budget was the White River Valley Ambulance Association. So that was a $38,000 increase. So a majority of our budget increase this year, or more than half of our budget increase this year, was just in the White River Valley Ambulance. So once we went through all of our departments and moved things around, the biggest mover was White River Valley Ambulance. So at the end of the day, it was half of it was really the White River Valley Ambulance. The other half of it was going up in the police enforcement piece of it. So those are kind of the biggest pieces. Some other things that we did in the budget this year just to try to balance our budget. Usually we have a 3 cent in mind increase, but not to try to exceed that. So anytime we get north of the 3 cents, then we start seeing, well, how can we get it back down to 3 cents? 3 cents should normally kind of lines up more with like inflationary type things on a normal year, not like the last couple of years, but and so this year, some things that we didn't do as much as we did not put as much money this year over last year in some of our future funds. So like our capital buildings fund, we didn't invest as much money in this budget as we did the previous one. Yep. The capital roads piece of it, we brought that down $30,000 year over year. So there were some of the future funds, like recreational fund was another one.
Yeah.
The reappraisal fund. So there's some of those that we're not saying that we're not looking futuristic. It's just based upon looking at the projected projects, we felt that we didn't need to put as much money in this year and we'd still be good in the long run. So now it's not something that we would want to do every single year, but it was something that we could do this year to kind of get into that more comfortable 3 cent area.
And we did end up coming in at 2.48 over last year.
Yeah.
I think and that's including the increase for Warva, including the increase for Tri-Valley Transit, and policing. So we were able to, we obviously went looking for cuts to offset like policing and other things.
And in last year's budget that we voted on was probably the largest mover that we've seen in quite some time. And a portion of that was really that inflationary pieces that everybody saw last year, just, big jumps in prices of whatever, fuel, salt,
Yep.
sand, I mean, all that stuff. And a lot of that market is kind of stabilized for this year. So a lot of the increases that we've seen this year was either increasing a service like in law enforcement or the White River Valley ambulance, which we don't really have any control over. It's kind of, do you want the ambulance service or not? So that was kind of a big hit this year. So that's pretty much it on the budget end of things. If anybody has any questions more in depth on a certain line item, we can always look at those.
So online, there's Danny, Dover, Owen, Alvy. I don't know if any of you online have any budget questions you want to ask?
Yes, no?
Oh, here we go. Somebody. Owen said, not at this time, thanks. You are welcome.
I'm good too. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Danny. Chance.
And I haven't heard really, I was talking to Teresa today and I had heard early on some reports from the school budget, which seemed like at that time early on that it was going to be very similar to last year, which ended up really not being a mover at all. Kind of was like a zero, went in as like 2 cents on town meeting day, but ended up being a nothing.
Yeah,
increase.
once they adjusted the yield.
And it seemed like that's kind of where it's heading right now. I know recently there was some communications out of Montpelier on their famous last minute changes and stuff. I tried to get a hold of the superintendent today and I caught him way too late. So I'm not sure what that looked like. I mean, last year overall for the town, the overall for the town, our taxes are about 10 cents higher last year between school and the municipal end of things. And most of that, almost all that was on the municipal end of things last year.
Mhm.
So I would say right now we're kind of looking at that 3 to 4 cent increase
Including
overall.
school.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So,
You'll know more for next meeting.
yeah, I'll try to get a hold of them tomorrow and see what they're looking at.
And that all is on the first, they got the ballot when they want, they run the ballot again on the
bond.
bond. So
Yeah.
if that passes, that's gonna make a big change.
Well, not big, but a change. Yeah.
Well, 1 something million.
Yeah, but it's only like,
$1.3
it's only like a 2 cent increase. So it'd be
I
like,
thought it was more than that.
Over 30 years.
well, it would only be a 2 cent increase because and it would only be a 2 cent increase for 2 years. Because the gym bond is getting ready to come off.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So 2 years from now, the gym bond would come off, that bond would go on, and the bridge in between would be like a two something cent increase, which is like $40 something a year,
Mhm.
for the average person. So that was, but no, I don't have any more information on that, but it sounds like, increase wise that they're looking a lot better than they were last year at this time. And, I think Therese and I and the board feel comfortable with, not just the budget, but, having futuristic money in there for projects that, we want to do, either roads or, if we ever get to building a town garage, we're getting there with funds.
I think the thing we're shooting for is for when the bond comes off, which I think is that Church Street Bridge or Town Hall, one of the two, the bond is gonna come off. So it'd be the time to pick up another, if we have to take on a bond payment for the town garage, which we will.
I think
It'd
the
be the
Church Street Bridge one just
It'd be the time to do it.
is coming off or just came off. And I think the
It's not.
town hall one's still a few more.
Yeah, the
years
bridge hasn't
out.
come off yet, but they.
Yeah, so
we're
it must be
still-
the bridge first.
It must be coming. But anyways, so talking about that, also talked to AJ, who is the road foreman, about the of the garage as far as size wise is also considering maybe being able to temper the size of the garage. Obviously, we have to stay within the footprint that we're in, but also if we had a pole barn, so they had kind of 3 seasons, maybe so that everything was undercover, but it means they wouldn't need as big of a garage, that sort of thing. So we're trying to look at it from really practical reasons. We're also probably going to end up handling the salt shed at the same time. Sometimes there's money out there for salt sheds, but unfortunately, we are too far from the river. So sometimes that's a bigger issue. They'll do the state, there's money for salt sheds that are within, such a distance. But we looked into it last year, the year before, and didn't.
We
Wasn't
could
gonna
move
make
the
it.
salt shed down to the ball.
That's what moving salt shed. So we're just,
The other side of the lot.
there you go. Straight
shot
down.
to the river.
So we're trying to look at all avenues, but obviously
Yeah.
staying within the same footprint of the garages, so it wouldn't be any bigger. And, but right now, I actually had a conversation with a contractor a little while ago. What's more expensive currently, stick built or metal? And it's like, it just depends on the day in the market. So we're looking at that.
See what happens to the price of steel.
I know, it's crazy. So, but we are obviously, the building is, past its prime. We're just trying to do the most responsible thing. But if we could take on a bond, we lost a bond, that would make more sense for the voters. So,
And then for town meeting day, I don't have the warning in front of me, but so we'll have our normal vote the budget.
Mhm.
And then there's going to be 4 separate items, one for each of kind of the human services pieces that,
6, I thought it was 6.
well,
maybe,
there's 4 human services, then there's White River Valley ambulance and the library. So there's 6 total, but
yeah.
so there's, one for Tri-Valley Transit, one for the food shelf, one for the library, one from South Royalton Senior Center,
Mhm.
Warva, and then the normal human services piece of
Mhm.
it. So there'll be those 6 items to vote on separately.
That's right. So we're gonna have to figure that out. Paul normally speaks to the Human Services Advisory Board pieces. I'll have to reach out to somebody else on their committee. So, or else the select board, somebody's gonna have to pick that one up, that article. Because Dana will usually have the select board pick an article, each of the members. So, but they'll need to sort out.
In the past, we've actually I remember having some of those people here.
Well, they'll do all their own articles, but usually Paul gives a little summary of the Human Services Advisory Board, like what's in town report, that one where you vote on all like.
Which is like 15,000 this
Yeah.
year.
Right, but there have been
Yeah.
years when those individual people would be here.
Yeah, sometimes you're right. I've seen Safeline, other people be there, but yeah, and then Tri-Valley Transit, Warva, those guys, they obviously already plan on having someone step up and talk to their specific one-time article, but the others will have the information in town report, which has gone to the printer. So hopefully we see next week. Do you have any questions on the budget?
I still never got my card.
I didn't get a card either.
Between you and the post office.
Yeah, no.
Just take it up with the
Oh,
post
it's probably still sitting.
office. Yeah, I don't know.
Call the joy.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
sure. Don't know what to tell you.
Oh.
But we'll be sure you two get town reports. How's that?
Yeah, no, think of it, yeah.
The thing is, I didn't get it. I don't need to get it. I'm informed,
Yeah.
but I didn't get it. Who else? Did?
I know, I don't know. It's hard to know. I mean, we mail them out and any ones that we get back for change of address, then if they no longer live here, Pam, sends them a challenge off from the checklist. If maybe their PO box expired, now they get mail, we sent them another one. So we only know what we get back from the post office.
Were we able to mail them out of Bethel this year, or did they have to bring them down to White River? I think last year.
We're not, you mean town reports?
Yeah,
We don't mail them anymore.
no, the
Just the
cards.
postcards, I believe they were mailed out of Bethel. I
Okay.
don't know.
Because last
I
year,
didn't
if they
handle
had to mail them out of White River, they wouldn't.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
She wouldn't accept them
Honestly,
over there.
I don't know.
Well, if it's anything
Kelly
like
handled
my
it.
delivery person, they just put it in a baggie. They throw it down the bottom by the mailbox. They leave it there. I don't know how many times I get home and the package is at the foot of the hill in a baggie. I'm like, oh, great, nobody's gonna steal that or get
Wait.
buried in a bunch of snow, like,
They're waiting for Brady to come
Unreal.
fetch it, bring it home. Yeah,
Right.
but probably where postcard.
where your postcard is. Yeah, so
Check the snowbanks tonight.
that's right. When you get home, Dave, I don't know.
All right.
Actually, my house is a lot harder to put the snowbank than it put the mailbox.
There you
Mailbox is
go.
Pretty easy to get to.
You all set, Chris?
Yeah, unless anybody had any questions.
Thank you. Now the annual highway financial plan.
So we have to do this every year. We get an email with a bunch of stuff so the state sends us, they fill in the class 1, 2, 3, the estimated amount of state funds that we're going to get. I put in the amount of town tax funds, based on the budget. And, so they basically what you're certifying is that funds raised by municipal taxes are equivalent to or greater than a sum of at least $300 per mile. What can you do for $300 a mile now? So, anyway, so this is just something that you will certify or motion to approve, and then we'll have you all sign it.
And was it last meeting or the meeting before we had to certify the mileage, right?
You did, yeah.
Yep. So you all set?
Mhm.
Do we have any more questions on that or a motion to approve or yes?
Motion to approve.
I'll say you gotta. You kind of have this
Yeah.
state thing.
Second.
Send them
All in
back.
favor?
Say,
Aye.
Aye.
can't here, you want to sign the back page?
All right. And we now have the annual highway certificate of compliance.
Yep, here you go. You want to sign this? Yep, so this is basically you are saying, certifying that you reviewed, understand and comply with the town road and bridge standards that were adopted on June 24th, 2019. Our standards do meet or exceed the minimum requirements by the state approved template. And we certify that we do have an up-to-date highway network inventory, which identifies location, size, et cetera, the roads, which we do. And we also have a grant with Two Rivers, and they're coming to do another inventory where they come and inspect culverts and roads. And so they'll start that in the spring, but we have theirs. That's what the steering committee works off from too. And AJ and I were picking, grant locations and stuff. So that's what you're certifying to, and then we will guys sign this, approve this, and then we send it on to Chris Bump, our District 4 advisor.
All right.
Motion
Anyone have
to
any-
approve.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And now we move on to Babe's Bar catering permit request
There you
for
go.
2/15/2025 from 6 to 10 at the White Church.
Yep, and here we go, sign this one. So all the details are in your packet. You've obviously approved events there before, and it is the White Church, and it gave you the date of the event and et cetera. Must have paid their fee, or that Pam wouldn't have put them in the list. So I guess they're all square with Pam.
Okay, motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Motion carries. All right, now on to the Grand Fondo Annual Bike Race for Saturday, June 28th. And Dave wants to make sure that we also have them list the town as an additional insurer.
In your motion, yeah, that's a good idea. This is a standard. You guys have done this event for a few years. Not to be confused with the Green Mountain Stage Race, which will, Gary Kessler will send his in soon, I'm sure. And so as you can see, they go from Randolph on Vermont Route 12 South, Pleasant Street towards Bethel, take a right onto Camp Brook Road into Rochester.
So I need a motion with that, if you want to do that, Dave, with your add-on.
Move to allow or agree or whatever the word might
Grant
be.
permission.
Grant permission with the addition of the town of Bethel being added as an insured
And you need to authorize the chair to sign.
and authorize the chair to sign.
Second.
Thank you.
Any more? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, there's no,
Well, I have one.
Yeah,
I didn't
you-
submit one in the packet.
all right.
I was busy. So there's not one in the packet. So just give you a little bit of an update. Apparently, there's some misinformation, and I don't know how it's going around, but about Pinello Bridge. So I wanted to set the record straight here. Pinello Bridge was damaged in the 2019, the April 2019 flood. The town manager at the time decided that FEMA would buy you a new bridge. So we have been going through the process. We did try, I did try to negotiate with Pinello's to see if they would sell us the property. It would have been easier, cheaper to do a buyout. The family was not interested in that. You cannot force them into that. Dorothy, specifically Pinello, wrote to a lot of her neighbors and residents on Gilead. They came to the meeting. The select board chair at the time was Chris, and explained that, residents would be on the hook for 12.5%. I'm certain that, obviously that the number is big. It's around 1 million, or it is 1 million. We had a temporary bridge put in so that they could have access to the house, and fuel and stuff. And so, yes, the town is on the hook for 12.5% of whatever the final cost is. The town is actually, we've already paid our share of the ERAF, because in the budget in 2020, we started budgeting for ERAF. So that money has been paid, for April 2019 floods, anything for, let's see, we flooded in April 2019, we flooded in 23, we flooded, twice in 23. So yes, all avenues were explored. What I would say is, obviously I was not the town manager at the time. Moving forward, if something like that was to happen again, I would probably buy a maybe bridge and put it in, because they can last a really long time. It was not the situation we were dealt with. We rent that bridge currently from the state of Vermont. I've asked multiple people to let me buy it, and they won't sell it. So they said it needs to come down, and I don't know what they're going to do with it, but they're not selling it to us. So anyways, what we're also, maybe, because they're not. Well, and what we're also looking at, the road crew, we've done a little bit, obviously we did something on, Wright Road, but what this select board and the road foreman is also doing are looking at other roads where we plow to 1 or 2 houses. What's the status of the road? And Pinello became, the select board adopted that and made it a road, a class 3 road in 1999. Now, I don't know why, I wasn't here, but so people are obviously under the impression that we were being really irresponsible, when in fact it was just, we have to play the cards we're dealt. And now we will have to hold that road for a period of time. And then hopefully at some point in the future, you may be able to throw it up, but not right now. FEMA's, we're going to have to own it, but we are taking a look at other roads. So certainly,
But you also have to think that, we did have a meeting and talked about,
Yeah.
we explored all the options, which the options are try to do a buyout, which didn't go anywhere. The next option is to talk about throwing the road up, which we had, really the individuals being affected all came out to voice their concerns, and there was no real opposition to it.
Mhm.
And so we, went the route of putting the bridge back in. And of course, which we haven't done yet, but once FEMA gets involved and they put their money into it, then you can't just like instantly throw it up after, so there's got to be a period of time that you got to hold it. And like Therese said, we are through the last 4 budgets, we have kind of already paid for it. So it's, our percentage that we would be, we on the hook for, we've already kind of paid for that.
Yeah, we were assuming we'd come in around 1.2 million.
But we
EPI
also
was
think
a
it's
little-
not, is it good practice to have a large infrastructure going to 1 or 2 properties? No, it's probably not a good practice, and it's probably something that we should look at.
Mhm.
But it's not just one house. There's other individuals that own property, off of that road that are affected as well. Just because they haven't built doesn't mean that they don't have just as much rights to it. So,
Mhm.
and I think we had 2 or 3 other individuals that
Maybe
have
I'd
parcels
have
up
to look
there.
at the tax.
So, So it's just been a long road. We've had, I don't know, I mean, a dozen meetings over that thing over the
Way more than that.
5 years. So
Yeah.
there's been plenty of time to put input in. We've talked about it at, I think, every town meeting day since then, so
It is a
it's been
lot.
out there for a while.
And ECI was a little better. They came in around 800 and something thousand. And part of the deal was, we've had to fire an engineer. So the project is slowed, but we did look at something we tried to do was to relocate the bridge to make it a little smaller, a little more stable. And then that kicked us into mitigation and, it's been a lot with FEMA. And so we're looking at with engineering and installation, it'll probably be around $1 million. So 12.5% of that. But, these are the cards we were dealt. And so we're just making the best of it. And but certainly it's not a practice that want to continue, but I was handed the project when I came. So, so hopefully it's being built this year.
And really regardless of who, would have made the decision at that time or whatever, it's, your only options are to either try to get a buyout.
Yeah, or
with
built.
it. So during, Irene, there were several individuals that took buyouts because their property was, maybe now the river went through the middle of their property or took away their house and they didn't want to build in flood anymore. But you can't force them to comply, it's an option.
And you can't leave that house stranded there. It's a class 3 road and FEMA pays for, gives you a percentage of class 3. You don't have a lot of choices.
And it's
at
tough
the time.
because it's a structure that the town has approved, that the town, just like we just signed off on, that we get, even though it's probably a joke, we probably collect $200 a year from the state to maintain it,
Yeah.
But it's something that we collect money on, that we have certified that we are in good standings and, but it's definitely something that we should look at.
And that's why we're looking.
And
at
others
other
like it.
Exactly. And we looked at other, because, Yep.
Throwing up.
Yeah, exactly. Stephenson and there's a couple others and you're actually on the list, there's people that want us to throw them up. And so last year we went through the process for other reasons and but now we're familiar with it. We'll have to, go back through and but it's we weren't happy either, but it's what happened. And if somebody else's road comes out, that's what we're going to deal with. And obviously there's a private bridge above it. There's a private bridge below it. So we did, we did get permission from the Pinellos and I gave permission on the behalf of the town to remove a couple of trees so that we wouldn't take out Jeff's bridge if something else happened. But it's one of those things. But so since it had come out, I'm not sure if it was in the newspaper as far as minutes or whatever. I just wanted people to be clear. I did answer an email today, or I sent someone information about it today. And then Dave had brought it up that someone asked at the legislative breakfast. So I just wanted to make sure that people had the facts. Yeah, no, it wasn't Brian. And because he knows the whole details. He's been here enough. So I just wanted to let you know that. Also wanted to let you know that, so obviously, the snow, it's been a rough go. And so we had a storm on Saturday night. It looks like we're getting snow squalls tomorrow. We're getting another storm Thursday and another storm Saturday. So we did have a couple of breakdowns. Lyndon lost a spring in the back of his vehicle that they were trying to repair today. Mike had gone off the road on Christian Hill and bent something, that a tie rod or something that we'd had replaced. So, but it happens. It was, I know a lot of people griping, but there was a layer of ice. It froze over. It got really sunny. It froze. There's snow. And then there's a layer of ice under it. So they were out and Mike, I think one of the guys probably pulled Mike out. And so they had to do a repair to him, lost another bed chain. Luckily we had one on hand. So they did that. Today they were fixing the spring, and then Lyndon does Gilead root. He got stuck up on Upper Gilead, slid off, sent AJ a picture. AJ couldn't get by him because it's so narrow to try to pull him out with a grader. But he reached out to Derek Aldrighetti because Derek had a piece of equipment and he called him to see if he had anything because he was going to do some logging, I guess, in the area. So AJ reached out to him to see if he had a piece of equipment above because he's like, I can't get around him. And he actually had a piece of equipment below. So he pulled, so he got Lyndon out. And so obviously we're very appreciative of that. And then Lyndon was, back on the road. So somebody, Paul was on Christian Hill and he's going along and all of a sudden somebody in a pickup was going for it. And he was like holding his ground and the guy went in the ditch and Paul stopped and said, "You all right?" He said, "Yeah." Paul said, "Well, you're probably going a little fast for conditions." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry." The gentleman was, but people need to remember not to crowd the plow. These guys are out there. They're tired. Sometimes they're pulling over and taking a 15-minute nap or they're going back to the shop to sleep for a few minutes and the equipment gets fatigued, so these guys are not only out plowing, but they're also going back to fix stuff. So it's not like they're getting a day off the next day. They're probably repairing something. And when Lyndon's truck was down, Paul was doing 2 routes because Lyndon was trying to keep up with it with a 6,500 as best he could, but it's a small truck. So, everybody's out there. So tomorrow snow squalls, Thursday snowstorm. And so if you live somewhere off the pavement, you probably ought to drive safe, have winter tires and, just take it easy.
Stock up on groceries.
Well, yeah. And these guys are doing the best they can. And it's, it's tiring and they're trying. So just want everybody to have a little patience. And if you have an issue, you can call the town office and we'll do our best. If you have an emergency, call 911. And other than that, just ask that you give them some respect and thanks and some room.
Yeah, I live on Sand Hill and I hear those trucks sometimes, 1, 2 o'clock in the
They're
morning.
going out.
They're going out
Yeah.
They come out.
24/7.
I knew they had breakdown.
Yeah.
But they did have the 6,500 out.
Yep. They did. Bless you.
It's 2 roads, Perham Road and Chase Road that has very elderly people at the end of that road.
Yep.
And they didn't get, you couldn't have got an ambulance out there until like 4 o'clock at night.
Well, we're aware of some of those issues. And if there was a 911 emergency, we have a great fire department and we would have got them out. We had people stranded after the flood and we would get them out. They're, if they're broke down, I'm certain that the road crew knows, especially the, people on Perham, I know who that is. And, we'll get them out. And, but obviously your first is just the main, thoroughfares. I'll let him know. I'll remind the road foreman.
Okay, but 3 o'clock is like,
I know. But if they have one truck doing 2 routes, you got to plow. Wait a second.
I had people stop.
Back this truck up.
In Quarry Road. I
Yeah.
was plowing Quarry Road.
Yeah.
So I was plowing down road.
See, I appreciate that. And so, yeah,
Bill off.
so,
I got fed quite well.
Yeah, a friend of mine went to plow a friend of his out on one of the roads off of Russell Road in Tunbridge, and he had to plow off a Post Farm Road going out that way and around, and he had to plow the road to get to her house to plow it, and then he went out the other way and he had to plow his way back out, and that was like 2:30 yesterday afternoon.
yeah, it's,
Tunbridge hadn't been out either.
yeah, we were afraid that we were, not going to be able to do the repair on the Western Star. But I saw AJ today and he said that they got, famous last words. Michael appreciate it. It's just a couple of bolts, Shreese. I'm like, oh, here we go.
Did you see it?
They sent me, AJ sent me a picture.
It's more than a couple points.
Yeah,
I saw it
but the
limping
bottom
up.
line is, no one was injured,
Yeah.
which is thank God. And we
Sure.
appreciate people helping them, pull somebody out and we appreciate that. So that's all I got.
Right. Well, I'm glad Derek was there to help with the other truck.
Yep.
All right. That's all you got? All right. And next is the select board minutes from 1/27/2025. Is there,
Motion to approve.
Second.
all in favor?
Uh,
Any other communications?
There, I think.
So I guess the only question I had
Was it?
with the cost, with our budget cost to date is,
Well, are you looking at the finances?
yeah,
Oh, okay, sorry. I was like, thought there was something.
is just the thoughts behind this. I mean, this winter obviously has been more expensive than,
Yeah.
way more expensive than last winter. Of course, last winter was,
And it's rain.
just
A
phenomenal.
lot of-
So how are we doing right now on our sand and salt inventory? Do we expect to see any over usage or, and like, how is overtime and stuff like that looking at this point?
Well, overtime is what it is to some extent. I mean, a lot of these storms seem to keep rolling in on the weekends, but they will, AJ will, the guys will come in. If they come in, and they'll leave early, so I think he's doing what he can to manage overtime. Some of it's just timing of the storms. So, but, as far as sand goes, I think we're going to be fine. We had some in reserve before we started. Salt is another issue. We have, training some people to spread salt is, a little bit tricky at times. So we're working on that. And, but I believe, I was hoping, or AJ's hoping we're getting a salt delivery today. Do I think we're gonna go over budget? I think we're gonna make it, but it's gonna be depending on the weather that's thrown at us. But if we overspend on salt, we'll underspend somewhere else, as is the practice.
The sand pile looks like it's plenty of sand.
Yeah,
Unless we have a really horrible spring.
yeah. So we'll, that's generally the way it go. I mean, the budget is the budget. That's always my expectation. If you overspend on something, you're underspending somewhere else. It is not a suggestion. It is what you got. So, and AJ's, but OT is just tricky. And currently we're full staff because we have AJ, Mike, and Lyndon Flint. We took over Morgan's spot, so that's going well. And then, of course, Paul Feeney is a seasonal, and he came in much later than normal because he had his own work to do.
And
So-
Richard was out yesterday.
Oh, yeah, Richard always pitches in. He's, either doing sidewalks or whatever. And he also takes the truck and does sewer and wastewater stuff. So they're always good, as is the road crew, about going in and helping. Richard.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're saying that with the sandstone, it's building a base on the roads
Yes.
and not getting plowed off of
Well,
them.
right now, I mean, there's some places for sure, when it's really icy like that, sometimes you can see it hitting and it's just going off. But generally, it's heavy enough that if it softens up, it will sink down in and will help with the road base. Yes. But, when it's a layer of ice like that, like you pulled somebody off from North Main, when it's a sheet of ice like that, I'm sure it's, a little isn't working as perfectly as we would like it to, I guess.
The nice
Better
thing-
way to explain
The
that.
nice thing about the stone chips is, when you have let's say you have a snow event, right, on a dirt road, and then you don't have anything for, let's say, a week, and you get that hard packed snow down, if you spread stone chips down, that stone chips will actually just kind of sit right in there, and you won't have to worry about multiple sanding events,
Some of
right?
that stone's pretty sure.
Well, it's no different than your gravel road normally. The challenge of that, so stone chips cost more than regular sand, okay? But if you're able to not have to sand as often, then you'll save money overall. The other thing too is the stone chips can act as a base after the fact, where a lot of times your natural sand is round, right? So round sand ends up going to the sides of the road, and then you don't want to grade that back in. What gets expensive is if we have events like we're having right now, where it snows and 2 days later it snows again, 2 days later it snows again, and you're putting down the more expensive stone chips, then you're kind of, I don't want to say wasting your money, but it's not getting the effect where natural sand would be a little better at that time because it's cheaper and it's going to get covered up in another day. But like last year, for instance, when we had not many events, when you went and you put down the stone chips, as they stay there longer. So you don't have to go out there and sand every morning or, because a lot of times the issues why things are slippery is that, on the back roads is once the snow gets packed down during the daytime, it warms up a little bit. And then at nighttime, it gets cool. And the round sand often, as you drive over it throughout the day, it just kind of moves to the side of the road, where the stone chips just kind of anchor themselves into the stone.
And that's true for 1 or 2 days, but by the third day. Because I couldn't get out of my drive, that's why we drive,
Mhm.
because the chips go into the snow, and then they're part of the road.
Yep.
There's no grip left at all by day 3.
Yep.
But day 1 and day 2,
Well, like I spread some of that and on the ice, it's just as slippery as just being on the ice.
Exactly. And that's what we're saying.
Well, ice
Some
is
of it
ice, right? I
I
mean,
mean-
it's, you know,
And it's one of those things, we buy the product, months in advance. So we don't know exactly what we're going to get for weather. And it worked out great for us last year. And we had complaint after complaint after complaint prior years using the more organic sand because it was slimy when it
That
got
was like
wet.
silt, right?
Yeah, right. And it
But that was
was,
like, it did
Yeah.
buy it marketed as like a silt.
marketed
not a-
as sand.
well, the
Road-
challenge is like,
How much organic?
the challenge is what they deem winter sand, right? So if you hear towns say, hey, we got winter sand, right? Like the specs on winter sand are so vague that it's basically from the top end of a top end of like an earth burrow to like the bottom end of like, not concrete sand, but somewhere in that area. So it's really, it's sand that doesn't really have much practical use, so what ends up happening is you do get more of the organics in them. You get less of the stone. And then with natural sand, you have round stone. So in round stone, after it gets run on a few times, goes to the side of the road. So the thought is that in this case that it'll last longer. Now it won't last, I mean, if you can put it down in the last 2 days, that's good because most of the time you got to go through there daily
Yeah.
and do it. And then the stone chips will stay behind that you could grade back in. But
So it's kind of, right now it's what we have for material. It's,
I was just wondering about the future, just with it being sharp and maybe the stones getting kicked up when people are driving at 50 and
50.
down the main street.
Yeah.
well, sounds like the speed's got to slow down,
That's
right?
right. And so it's things
And-
that we can talk about certainly. And for now, we have what we have and it's something certainly we can talk. I can speak with AJ about. This will be his first full winter as a road foreman. Let's see what he thinks, how it went. Maybe if he wants to have something else on hand as well next year, we can certainly accommodate that.
do we do rolling roadblocks?
What? Rolling roadblocks?
Yeah, like they do on the interstate?
You'd have to take that up with the sheriff. Well,
Not on this interstate,
Maybe Batista.
maybe down in New Hampshire when they do like tandem plowing and stuff, but,
Well, they did right here on Interstate 91 this last weekend.
oh, did they?
Mhm.
I don't know.
And I get out my truck and I just go up and down the road at 6:30 at night, 11:30 at night, at 20 miles an hour. and we'll
There you
sort
go.
those People out.
Yeah, you'd be like the pace car.
Mm.
So, hey, but anyways,
No, this,
it's our third.
And we like it a lot because on a sunny day, especially if you're on a hill, the sand just melts down through and the stone stays. I mean, we've been using it for a while.
I
This
think
is
this
our
is our
third
third year.
winter.
Yeah,
It's our
third.
third year.
That's just been our experience.
So do you do what we do? We mix?
We mix
the-
ours.
Yeah.
So does the Bridgewater and we plow for Reading too.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what
But it
we
does
switch.
help. If it's sunshiny day
Yeah.
on the hill, the sand, brown sand or black sand
Yeah.
seems to melt down through and you still have a little traction, but
Yeah.
when it's warm and water's running, it's gonna be ice anyways, no matter what.
Yeah, and
But
yeah.
that's what we found.
Yeah, and we had a flashover last week when it was really sunny out. And then I had someone call and say, hey, Trees, North Road's a sheet of ice. Well, once it does that, it warms up, it gets sunny, it melts, and then it glazes over. So,
And then we had,
Wow.
where this all kind of started from is, probably 5 years ago, somewhere around there is, we were looking at our budgets, like, why are we using so much salt? Like if you looked at our budgets back then and salt was a lot cheaper back then. I mean, you were probably buying salt for like, $60 a ton or something like that.
Not
Now
anymore.
it's,
Eight.
90 to 100. And we were spending $100,000 a year on salt in this town. Now, for anybody that's ever plowed, we know that, salt's easy to use, right? I mean, it's the most expensive tool, right, that you have, but it's easy. Like you spread salt on things and it dissolves and you can cut ice back and things like that. So, Public Works Department, because nobody was really monitoring at that time, just, salt's easy. Why load sand when I can put salt, right? And, so then we're like, this is not practical. Like, we can't be spending $100,000 a year on salt. And then we found out it wasn't just like we were salting the areas that we should. We were salting, areas that didn't make sense, So then we went to more of a sand, go more heavy sand, certain areas use salt, and then we found out that some of the sand sources that we had maybe weren't yeah. So it wasn't really the best quality sand that we had out there. So it was really silty, which just kind of melts. And then in some cases didn't have enough stone properties to it.
It was real slimy, like you didn't want to grade that back into the road or anything. And it was causing some issues in the spring where it's really. Yeah, it was
So then we were gonna have to go further away from town to get sand. And then by that time, we're like, well, if we're gonna pay that much more to go get sand, natural sand, why don't we just buy stone chips at the same time? Because it was, instead of like before, we used to have a local supplier. But now we were gonna have to haul that from multiple towns away, sand, and it's like, why not get stone chips to mix in with it?
Yeah.
Because as you know, you get better value out of that.
There's literally some big ones too.
So now, for the most part,
I don't know
we
what's going on.
Yeah.
we mix that.
Some old sand in with chips, I think.
I mean, I remember the old days, when I came to
Yeah,
this,
no, I
when
know.
I came to this town 15 years ago, I used to go down to the sand bank and and throw a bunch in the back of my truck, and I mean, there would be stones that like this big, and I'd go home and you couldn't even put it on the driveway.
Yeah.
Because the snow blower was gonna die after. So
Yeah, I think
But-
that we do, I'm sure that they're mixing their 3-inch stone with it. Maybe they had some leftover material that they're tossing in there too. I don't know, but
Yeah, there's some stones in there now that are.
big.
And when that happens, usually they're probably digging at the bottom of the pile. They're getting just random stones at the bottom, so maybe they just gotta be
Yeah.
careful where they're digging, but.
Yeah. So anyways, that's where we're at. And
Sure.
so we've got storms coming Thursday, storms this weekend. And so, just like what they say on the state, don't crowd the plow and just, try to drive careful and think ahead and be prepared. And, if you don't have to go anywhere, don't. And we're certainly, but if you have any emergency, please call 911, and we have a great fire department and road crew, and we'll get you out.
And this snow we've been getting is that cold snow, that
Mhm.
really fine snow that just packs right into the tread of your tires. So it doesn't matter how good your tires are, they instantly are bald. Like, and wherever you're driving, it doesn't feel like you have any traction. So it's been that, hopefully these storms, it's warmer snow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, the last two, the one we had last week, that one that
Thursday.
was really slippery, and then we had one a week prior to that, that was
Yeah.
just like, I had one day, I've never done it ever. I had a dentist appointment in Northfield that day, and I left at 4-wheel drive. It was snowing, and I went to Randolph. I got almost to McDonald's in Randolph. I was like, what am I doing? Like, this is stupid. Like, I'm turning around going home, and I've gone up on
The
that.
golf.
I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
I did last week.
My truck would be there still.
Yeah.
And I was
So-
like, it was so slippery. So
Yeah. So anyway, so the guys have been, going at it. Like I said, had some breakdowns. Hopefully they stay on the road and everybody's, okay. And, but if they get fatigued, the equipment gets fatigued, and that's where we're at. Did you have any more questions on the budget status report, or anybody? This is for about 58% through the year.
no, the only thing that just stood out for me was just the overtime, which,
Yep.
because we're already almost at the overtime allowance, which
Yeah.
we pretty much only do overtime in the wintertime. So, and
Yeah.
I would say we're probably a little more than halfway through the winter. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so if
So-
we're over it now, we're
Yeah.
going to be running 20 or 30 grand over that.
We might, but we're gonna be under on regular labor because Paul didn't come in until later in the
Yep.
season.
That's
And,
right.
different, we had Morgan leave and took on Linden, so, we manage it as we can.
All right.
So what else? Did you had community engagement meetings and the minutes in there, I think?
Yeah, and planning commission.
Yeah, planning commission minutes and I think that
I'm
was
trying to
it.
see if there's, I don't know if there's a rec committee meeting.
There's not,
I don't think
Ellie was in today and her print, she's having technical difficulties. I told her to just make a hard copy and bring them in and we post them for her.
Okay. All right.
And then the only other thing I was talking to Teresa about a little bit today is, probably that the board should really look into this coming year is in 2027, V-Trans will be coming back through here to do the village limits of milling and paving.
Yep.
So, we should probably have our ducks in a row. If there's anything in the village area that we want to do or change, we should probably be looking at that now. Not saying major projects like one thing that comes to my mind is, with the parking and do we want to continue to have it where you have to wait for somebody to go through so the next person can go through, or do we finally just say, all right, we're cutting parking off on the side of the street? And that way, at least we know that they can put it in the plans, and when they come back through here, they can stripe it accordingly. And,
Yep.
maybe one side you have parking, then you have your two travel lanes, and maybe the other side, maybe you have a walking lane, bike lane,
Yeah.
or just a safety lane where you could if you're on the dry cleaners, you could stop for a minute,
Like we talked-
offload and,
Yeah,
Exactly.
10-minute drop off.
We did talk about that.
so
loading
any of that, and the
zone.
limits normally goes from like the feed place
Yep.
to the school.
Yeah.
So anything in that area, like the sidewalk.
Yeah, we
projects
should have the
get
sidewalk
done.
project done from John Gifford's house to the school. That should be done. We've been telling them that needs to be done before the state comes through. Obviously with the water project, we fixed a bunch of the issues on Sand Hill.
And I don't
and
know
right
if
the
there's planning grant
intersection.
for the municipal parking lot, if there's any stormwater that would have to go across.
Not currently.
But if there was, that kind of stuff, just
Right.
get it done, because there's nothing worse than finally getting some nice new pavement and then we cut it up behind it. So-
Exactly.
And last time they did this, as soon as we got done the next summer, we did the Church Street sidewalk project.
Oh.
We dug up all the sidewalks. Remember that, Dave? And then it was all.
Yeah.
Shit.
So no, that's the only project that we're waiting on is that the municipal parking lot will handle, within the municipal parking lot. So that shouldn't be a big deal. And then the sidewalk project, which is slated to go through before the state comes through. I will double back with Richard about any like storm water catch basins, anything that needs to be lined or rebricked or anything, but you're right. They'll have to make
The other
decision.
thing too is the state isn't normally going to come to you with this, but if you ask or demand it, they'll have to do it as like any ADA compliance
Oh, we've
pieces.
already made our list.
So if you
Yeah.
have ADA ramps or
We did.
tip down the sidewalk, that kind of
Yep.
stuff.
We sent them a list
Worst
already.
case scenario, the town will pay a small percentage of
Yep.
that, might be 15% of the total amount, which is cheap money.
Yeah, I think that Rita had, because Rita and I walked the village and we made a list of all the truncated domes of any, ADA crosswalk adjustments that needed to be made or where concrete needed to be fixed. And then we reached out to the state. So I'll double check with Rita, but I believe she submitted that list already
Yeah,
to them.
but
But
that's
if
all it
not,
is.
I'll
It's
ask. her
way
to.
easier to just pay a portion of it than to pay the whole thing. So
Yeah, no kidding.
trying to think.
I noticed a couple manholes over there by where Valley Motors were that are sunken.
Yep.
And I don't remember seeing that previous. So has something happened there? Or is it the way the process is working this year? Or do we know?
You mean the one also by where you turn in for the rec department?
Yeah, that one and the next
Oh,
one.
that one by the rec department, when I lived in that White House all night long. Every time a car, so that's been that way for like 3 years.
But we can raise the risers on those. We can,
Or you can have them replace or rehab them. And
yeah.
Yeah.
We did that when they came through in front of the town office. There were some structures that we had, redone.
And then obviously the number one thing is make sure everything, the water valves are all marked,
Yep.
or if there's something that's buried now, have it marked so that you can get it back for once,
Yeah, and Richard should have, since we did the $2.8 million project, we kind of.
But
came
that's something,
there.
really that, I don't even know how far that is, 0.7 of a mile, or whatever that piece, 0.6 of a mile, whatever that is, just,
GW to the other side of town hall is almost a mile.
no, just the feed place.
Oh,
It stops right before you go down to the, I think that's where the line is.
Yeah. So I'll double check with Rita that she gave them that list because we did reach out to them once her and I walked it and made a list of
Yeah,
everything
'cause
that we're
that's
gonna
coming.
need for repairs. Yeah, they've already been in town doing stuff, so. But I'll ask Richard about those manholes and so that we can also get that information of the state. And once they know in advance, obviously it's always easier, so.
All right, any other business to come before the board?
No.
All right, one last thing.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
You want to stay?
There you go. Thank you.
All right, thank you, guys.